Hey everyone, we're going to do something a bit different today, and rather than the typical course vlog format, instead I decided to have a discussion with someone who is a scratch golfer. So this is my buddy Nash.
Howdy.
Thanks for being the step-in scratch golfer, and I think we should just get into it.
All right, let's jump into it.
Putting is one of those ones I want to get lost down the rabbit hole of putting.
Okay.
Because to me, I guess stepping back, golf is two games. Golf is golf swing, like propelling a golf ball, and then golf is doing this like hilarious little thing where you use a stick to whack it into a hole. That's a different game than the rest of golf.
Right.
And it's 40% of your strokes.
Yeah.
I think for most amateurs, it's 40% of your strokes are on the green. And if you add up like around the green, it's more than half of the game.
Yeah, like
right?
Depending on your chip, a lot of chips are more or less a putting stroke if it's simple. Like
yeah, so I'm saying like half the game isn't this thing that people go to the range and like work on their swing about. Half is doing this one thing that like no one practices.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. Like people like roll a few putts before the round. Even most guys who like going to the range a lot, they then don't go and spend the same amount of time on the putting green. And if it's half the game, in theory, they should be, right? So this is something interesting. Again, people ask me for advice on the channel and I'm like, don't listen to me. People ask me for putting advice. Putting's like the one thing I do kind of well.
Better than me.
Better than a plus handicap, apparently.
We'll find out.
The point is, on the spectrum of golf, I am very humble and know that I'm very bad. I putt pretty well, right?
Yeah, you're a very good putter.
And so people are always like, it shows in videos, you know, putter is what keeps me from having a disastrous day. And people will say like, what are your putting drills? I don't have putting drills.
Okay.
What I know, here's what my biggest checkpoint for my putting. Can I get the ball started on my intended line? And if I'm not doing that, if I'm trying to hit the ball to a certain place and like it doesn't even come off the putter face on the line I intended, then I do, in my case, have to go to something a little mechanical, figure out like, why is that happening? But that doesn't happen a lot.
Is there something you do to try and get the ball started on the right line?
So I guess I lied when I said I don't have a drill. There's one putting thing I've like practiced a lot at home. I have a putting mat. It's like a very speed one that, you know, different speeds, different directions. And I actually, when I'm doing it, I always am doing it to groove in actually feel and distance control. But inadvertently, because it has a line down the middle, I start realizing it when I'm using that mat sometimes, oh, I'm pulling everything. Every ball is starting a bit left. And I basically work out on that mat how to start rolling it down the middle line on the mat. So if I realize on the course, oh my God, my ball's never started on the intended line, I do go back home and bring out that mat. It's probably the only golf practice I've ever done. That's a bit of a distraction from what I wanted to say about an irregularity in your swing potentially being okay for your swing. So I want to bring that to putting for a sec. I was watching a video at Pebble. It was Shell's Wonderful World of Golf between Nicholas and Snead at Pebble.
Okay.
Everyone should watch it. It's amazing. They've restored the footage. It's unbelievable.
Oh, cool. I haven't seen that.
Oh, you like must watch golf.
Okay.
I mean, it has Jack Nicklaus, Pebble Beach.
Yeah.
Like,
what else? Yeah.
and it's way better than watching a round of golf on TV because it's the two of them in this match. It's unbelievable. Greens were different back then, right? They're putting with a lot more wrist, I noticed, because they're kind of literally making sure the ball's whacked over some uneven grass. But nonetheless, they both putt very well, obviously. It's Jack Nicklaus and Sam Snead. They know how to putt. And I'm watching the video, and they keep getting these angles on Sam Snead. He's putting so far off the toe. Like, half the ball is almost off of the toe. Like, it's unbelievable. And I watched it the first clip, and I think he kind of missed like an 8-footer with that putt. And I saw the clip and I went, whoa, like he really mishit that. And then I realized he's doing it the entire video. And I realized, again, just to the words of the idea, no coach on earth would tell you, deliberately putt every single putt so toey it's crazy. You know what he did? He did that consistently and always started the ball where he intended to.
Well, it's interesting because like I wonder how much like technology, like I wonder how, like if you were to hit a ball off the middle of an older putter, whatever Snead was using, how much more pop would that have compared to the toe? Because like on a new putter, like the middle of the club face is like, the ball's gonna come off of it quite a bit like faster than the toe. So you really wanna make sure that whatever you're doing there, you're hitting it consistently.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching this, I don't know, it was like a YouTube video or like a playing with a pro or something like that where Ricky Fowler,
I was just going to bring this up.
Yeah. So Ricky Fowler's like, well, the first thing I focus on is just like making sure I strike the putt pure and in the middle of the club face. And in my head, I was like, holy smokes, I've never thought about that in my entire life. Like I've not once in my entire life thought about hitting my putts in the middle of the club face.
And hold on, I don't mean to interrupt your flow here, but just for like, I watched the same video.
Oh, you did?
We haven't
Okay.
discussed this.
Oh,
I had
okay.
the same reaction. And my first reaction, I guess, was a bit different than yours. Mine wasn't, oh, do I do that? Mine was, like, he's one of the best putters in the world.
Yeah.
He's
ridiculous.
It's automatic. He just
Yeah.
he's so good. So I thought, you know, his first answer, because they basically said, like, yeah, what do you think about over the ball? And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, well, we're about to hear some shit. And he's like, oh, I just make sure I middle it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
And
you realize again, but like, he's right. Because as you say, on
Yeah.
these modern putters, like, that putt is coming off different.
So like the toe putting is interesting. Like I'm not opposed to someone always hitting it off the toe if for whatever reason that's their tendency and they can do it consistently.
Right.
But like if we wanted to say like as a general rule, if you're struggling with your putts and you're normally hitting it off the middle of your putter face, like hey, why don't we hit 10 or 15 putts off the middle of the club face and just because it's almost impossible to consistently get the right speed if you're hitting the ball on a different part of the putter.
Right.
And so like when you think about why most amateurs three-putt, generally speaking, it's going to be because of bad speed control.
Yeah.
Because you can hit a putt a little bit offline with the right speed and still have a two-putt. Whereas if you're messing up your speed, like it's a lot tougher.
I 100% agree.
Okay.
And this is, again, so people ask me, what putting drills do you do? I don't do putting drills. I have a psychological approach to putting that starts with what you just said. Let's not three-putt.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like every time we're on a green, I mean, obviously three-putt territory exists.
Yeah.
Right? But like when no matter who you are, if you're a 25 handicap, if you have 15 feet, you shouldn't three-putt.
Yeah.
But we do. So why? So there's 4 skills to putting. There's read, aim, stroke, and touch.
Okay.
Can you read the putt? Aim I might even throw out because like it's supposed to be, can you aim on your intended line? Stroke, can you stroke it on your intended line? Can you start, so really, fuck it, there's three aspects of putting.
Yeah.
Read, stroke, and touch. Touch is the most important one. Touch being distance control, feel, right? Because as you say, like we're not playing Augusta, like, right? Most people going out and playing golf are
pretty basic.
even like, you know, a huge undulating, there isn't a huge undulating 20-footer, but a 20-foot putt on the average golf course, how often does that putt have more than 2 feet of break?
No, like almost never.
Never.
Yeah.
Okay? So what matters on that 20-footer? You're not going to drain it most of the time. What you want to do is obviously put it to within, what is it, the 3-foot circle?
Yeah, I mean on a 20-footer, hopefully.
Yeah, but let's just even start there because let's talk about someone who 3-putts from 20 feet. Because like most people 3-putt from 20 feet, like often. Like a couple times around, they're going to have that brain fart and ram it past the hole or whatever it is.
Okay, but so is that brain fart a consistent brain fart? Like, are they constantly over hitting it?
That actually is, I think.
So I think, again, this is like where like kind of starting to understand what your tendencies are can be helpful. So if you're the type of guy, and a lot of people like go on their scorecard and like write down how many putts they have, but like even you can hopefully think back to your day. And if let's say you had 5 or 6 3-putts, you can just be like, okay, on this one I left it, like I pushed it long or I put it long. This one I put it long, this one I put it long, this one and you start seeing a pattern like, holy smokes, every single time I'm 3-putting, it's because I'm like juicing it by the hole.
Yeah. For the record, just to bring up, like the very first thing I started doing when I discovered probably through like the idea of course management, every scorecard I've ever kept in my life since then. Fairway green putts, and we'll discuss that later.
It's also interesting though, because I'm not necessarily a huge proponent of keeping too many statistics because I think it also causes people to overthink things.
Gotcha.
So like I would almost be inclined to, well, I think everyone's a little bit different. If you find yourself, if you find you have a tendency just as like a human being to like overthink things and you're just like, you're like getting lost in one scorecard, I would just say maybe think of the holes you 3-putted.
Sure.
And focus on that.
Here, I'll sell you off. I think that everyone should do it a few times.
Oh, sure.
Because here's the deal, right? I would bet that the average 15 handicap, 15, yeah, we'll use 15. If they look at where they lose their scores, so they could keep scores differently too. Like I bet if that person kept on their scorecard shots inside 100 yards every round, that's where the shots are going.
Oh yeah.
Right? So like you do need to keep it in play off the tee, that's another thing. But the average 15 handicap, I would say that basically means on a good day, they're still losing 15 strokes to the average course. I bet that 15 handicap gives away 8 of them more, probably 9 of them
definitely
inside
more.
100 yards.
Yeah. Well, and it's like,
so just to know that, as you say, like maybe you don't want to get lost in the metrics, but I think a lot of people like don't even stop and conceptualize that yet, and it becomes really obvious if you keep the stats.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh wow, I had 38 putts today. And I shot 90, and it's like literally, I could probably, not probably, I can have the same ball striking day as that person who shot 90 with 38 putts, and I'm shooting 80 with 28 putts. And like that guy's a 15 and I'm a 7 because I putted better.
And I would say like I don't necessarily generally like negative thinking, so like don't three-putt. So like we would, if we were looking at like PGA Tour statistics, it would be called three-putt avoidance.
Right.
And what I find very interesting is that I reckon so there's this, I actually, like everyone's like, oh, you can't leave your birdie putt short, like things like that. I mean, I remember this was when I was in like high school. I remember reading Dr. Bob Rotella's putting book. I don't actually really remember.
We're going to do a full list because like that book's on the list.
Okay. I like
anything that Bob Rotella has to say about putting, just read it.
But I like, I'm sure some of the things became part of my like habit and thinking, but the one thing I really remember is like it's okay to leave a birdie putt short.
Yeah.
It's like his position.
When do you preserve? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, his position, and this is what I try to prescribe to, is like, okay, you have a putt, you like do all of your assessments. So you like, okay, is this downhill or uphill? Is it left to right? Is it into the grain or not? If we're putting on like Bermuda or whatever, and you kind of like have a general like assessment of your putt, and then you put a couple practice strokes that are meant to mimic what the stroke you make are. So, you're trying to really feel that right speed and pace and all of that stuff in your practice stroke. And then you just step up to the ball. You do the best you can. If the putt comes up a few inches or a few feet, depending on the length of the putt short, like that's okay. Like
I don't have putting drills. Putting is a psychology. But if there's one drill to enforce something of anything to do with this, it's have distance control, because that's going to have you avoid three putts, right? So again, let's go back to the scenario of I have 20 feet.
Yeah.
I don't actually need to have read the putt well. My read can be 100% off.
Sure.
I can have it moving a foot right. In reality, it went a foot left.
Yeah.
If I stroked it within 2 feet of 20 feet,
yeah,
I left myself a guaranteed two putt.
Yeah. Do you think about speed?
Yes.
And so what are you thinking about? Like, is it more like get this putt by the hole, like die this putt in? Like, how do you think about speed?
I definitely look at every putt. Like, I don't know if I classify it binary aggressive or not aggressive, but I certainly am always thinking, when can I be aggressive with the putt, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like always, right? But for starters, as like a rough rule, if I have an uphill putt, I can be aggressive with it.
Right.
What I never ever want to do, I guess my home course, Shaughnessy, has a lot of places where it's dangerous to be above the hole.
Right.
Right?
Can, like, as a blanket statement, can we just say to your audience that if anyone has putts that are downhill, doesn't even matter like how short they are, like our goal should be to hit that putt at die speed so that the ball, it just barely gets past the hole if you miss. It just,
Yes.
maybe within a foot.
Right? Yeah. The general rule is downhill putts are more defensive, right? Like
Yeah.
obviously we're trying to make every putt, but like there's a huge difference between a putt that is two putt here is good. Like, because three putt is possible. And if we're above the hole, right, and we hit the ball with bad speed, we bring three putt into play. So it's like two putt is like, in my mind, again, I'm not thinking yay two putt, but I guess this ties back into mentality. When I have a 7-foot downhill sliding putt, I'm not upset when I miss it. I'm upset if I've hit a brain fart first putt and made it a three putt, right? Like, let's talk about real tough mentality, like having to accept a double and bring a triple out of play. I'm above the hole putting for bogey. Triple's still in play if I hit a bad putt. Right.
and scorecards don't discriminate.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
the stroke is a stroke. It didn't matter if it was actually a putt for eagle or a putt for triple.
You're just like, you're a defensive. And you are best off being defensive. And the only exception I would make to this is in some circumstances, depending on the type of game you're playing. Like if you're playing a match or something like that, then you can alter your way of thinking. But like as a general rule, like we should be saying, like, first of all, like anything outside of 20 feet, uphill, downhill, like our goal is just to get this in two.
Yeah.
Especially if it's downhill, we're going to really want to be focused on speed.
Yeah.
And then, from there, you can kind of go from there with how aggressive. But I kind of advise, although we don't like taking tips from golfers, but I kind of try and advise my friends if I notice they're struggling on putts, just like try to read putts with die speed across the board.
Fair.
And because so much of your putting, the reading part is like it's speed dependent.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was just say, like let's just try to get the ball like a foot past the hole. If you leave it a little bit short or a little bit past that, that's fine. But let's set our lines according to that speed.
Sure.
And try to go from there. Thinking about drills, I mean, it sounds like you actually have a few drills that you don't really do, but I think I'll so it sounds like to me the two things I'm hearing which are very accurate are like, one, you want to get your ball started on the right line.
Yes.
And two is you want to have, you want to work on your speed.
Yeah.
So like, here are a couple drills that people can practice. In addition to practicing at home, start just trying to putt not to a hole on your practice green.
Right.
Just like putt to nothing and just pick out a spot, or like putt from one side of the fringe and try to see how close you can get to the other side of fringe. So like, there are speed related drills you can do.
Sure.
The other thing is, a lot of people, like, if you find a straight putt, like put a tee down where you're going to hit your putts from, and then, maybe a foot, 3 feet, and then 7 feet, like drop a few dimes down and just try to have your ball roll over all of the dimes, and
Sounds
just like
a great drill.
right?
That's
or
indirectly
like,
what I'm doing on my mat at home.
right.
Yeah.
Or just like have the gates, like put 2 tees in the ground and just try to roll your ball through the gate. So like, the
So
objective.
you touched on the 2 things, right? That's getting the ball started online.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. But can we also agree, starting point, distance control first?
Sure. I'm fine with, like, yeah.
I guess I see all of these putts lost around the greens on distance control, and then anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that, you can kind of start bringing this out, is like, and we talk a little bit about this. It's what shot should I be hitting into the green so that I do have an uphill putt?
Yeah.
So you start picking your clubs based on where you want to putt from.
Let's talk about that aspect of course management right now, club selection.